Cowan, thank you very much for speaking with me and also my wife, Justine. And it's also cocktail hour.
Yay.
So cheers.
Yes. I'm dying to see what you're dipping into that glop. Can I have a look at what you're eating? There's yum.
How you doing, Claire?
Very good. Yeah. Still working from home at this stage, so
Yeah.
just shifting furniture around to have enough room to play cello and that sort of thing. We've got this tiny little one-bedroom house in Ponsonby, so got rid of the coffee table because that was taking up too much space. So that's out in the shed, and then I have taken over the dining table with all my screens and speakers and everything.
Cool, because normally you're in a studio.
Yeah, at Parachute in Kingsland, we've got our own little community of producers and musicians there. So I'm technically allowed to go back there now, but haven't made the move yet. It's quite a big shift to get all your gear set up again.
So Claire, you were Orchestra Wellington's composer in residence 2015, and in 2016 we premiered this fantastic violin concerto called Stark. Do you want to speak a little bit about the whole process of Stark and who you wrote it for?
I wanted to write a violin concerto after working with Amalia Hall on a Blackbird Ensemble project. And it wasn't the first time I'd heard her play. I'd heard her play lots of times before, but I hadn't actually played with her. And that gave me the insight into her just amazing talent and skill and musicianship. And so when Marc approached me, I wanted to suggest that I do write a concerto for her, because that was something on the bucket list. And so it was a big challenge for me because I've never written a concerto before. And previous to my appointment, I hadn't actually been writing serious music for orchestra at all. I'd been doing a lot of arranging, so lots of orchestrating, but not actually composing, because I'd been working in the soundtrack world for a number of years after graduating uni. It was a big challenge, and so I knew that I needed a strong story to base it around, because that's the way my brain was working in terms of how do I structure the thing. I usually would just look at a film and I would use that as a structure, and so I based it on we started with ideas of the New Zealand landscape, and then it started to be more based around like the idea of chiaroscuro, the contrast of like the west coast black sand against the white sky, and I was using words like stark and things like that, and then I thought stark, and it was like it must have just been some sort of ping moment that went off in my brain, that it was just like, oh, what about Frida Stark? And then I thought, she kind of looks like Frida Stark, because Amalia's a wee thing and Frida was only 5 foot or something. And so Frida Stark is a dancer from the 1930s. Well, she was most famous back in the 1930s and early 40s at the Civic Theatre in Auckland. And she's got a fantastic story to her life and her loves and the trajectory of her rise to fame. So I used that as the basis of a 3-movement concerto using different colours as the titles, and also having costume changes for Amalia. So it was in my true kind of Blackbird Ensemble style. It was lavish and visual as well as the musical side of things.
So I've known you for many, many years. I think I first came across your music in a composer reading with the APO, and I liked it so much that I actually performed the work in Wellington with Wellington Youth Orchestra. I was music director of it at the time. When it turned out that we had a space to be able to fit another composer in residence in the orchestra, I immediately gravitated towards you. First of all, because for years and years I've thought you're just an absolutely brilliant composer. But also, you mentioned the Blackbird Ensemble. What you've done with the Blackbird Ensemble resonates with me very, very strongly, because it's eclectic music, but it's also engaging the way you present the music. And you really do seem to always think of the audience first, regardless of what you're programming. Do you want to speak a little bit about the genesis of the Blackbird Ensemble and your feelings around audience engagement?
Sure. So going back 11 years now. I started off the Blackbird Ensemble with a bunch of friends who I'd met at university and I was out of work, and so I wanted a project to do that would make use of my time. And so I had been thinking about watching my talented friends who'd come through a university music performance degrees and watching them perform to audiences who were always of the same demographic, and they weren't reflective of the performers on stage. The young, talented performers with a lot of energy were performing to a lot of old people, basically, and there's nothing wrong with old people, but I thought, why do young people who play music not have young people in the crowd? And I thought, okay, well, I think it's probably the venue that we perform in. It has etiquette associated with it, it has history, and it has barriers to certain types of people wanting to come and hear that music because they feel like it's too elitist or it's too inaccessible. And it's not about the actual music that we play, because it's about the way that we invite the audience into the space. So the first Blackbird Ensemble concert was in a restaurant. It was in the basement of an Italian restaurant. It's like a concrete bunker basically, so it had a bit of reverb naturally, and there was a grand piano already in there, so that's one of the reasons why we chose it. It also had a back entrance that was kind of underground, and you walked up this weird staircase with just a single hanging light bulb at the top, and we thought, okay, this would be a great sort of snaking entrance way to the concert. And so we made the audience at the top of the stairway was an iron gate, and behind the iron gate was the concert performance space. And so we advertised that, we put posters up. I had very little money. It was just like, I used my brother's, sneakily printed it at my brother's work, and we pasted them up and all over Grey Linen, Ponsonby, and everywhere that I could think of. And then people came, and it was only a small venue, so there was maybe 120 people there or something, but it was absolutely packed, and they all had to come up the staircase, which would put fairy lights all the way up, so it was really magical. And during that, I was playing the cello, and I was playing Arvo Pärdt's Spiegel and Spiegel, so it was like very, very quiet music, and of course everyone was talking excitedly, and they're pressed up against this iron gate, and once we started playing, we opened the gate, and everybody came in, and during the 8 minutes of this really, really quiet, beautiful piece, everybody just, like, all the hubbub kind of just gradually quietened down until all you could hear was, you know, a pin drop and a beautiful, like, slow, quiet, sustained notes with my bow shaking because I was so nervous. And then we went on to play Fratras, and we had a dancer, and there was all sorts of different people there. There was family members, there was people who'd randomly seen the posters, there was people who'd never been to classical shows before, and that's been the same thing that's happened at all of our gigs, because we do them at weird places, and often we do them in theatre environments because they seem more welcoming to us than concert halls, and they're also very equipped to do all of our visual things with lighting and costumes, and they get you quite close to the action. And I've always valued that connection between the audience and the performers is a really magical one. Another thing that I sort of noticed as I was going to a lot of concerts at university is that moment that the soloist or the conductor gets brought out a bunch of flowers, and often they will present them, like somebody from the back of the violins will come out with a big bunch of flowers, and they'll take the flowers from them, they'll take a bow, and they'll give them a little kiss on the cheek or something. And at that moment, the applause will dip, the volume of the applause will dip, because the whole audience is worried whether they're going to both go to the same side and there's going to be an awkward moment or something. And that moment I thought is so interesting. And I thought, so that sort of energy and connection of the whole audience to the performers, I wanted to take that and do the unexpected and give that sort of like shot of adrenaline to the whole audience and the performers. And so we took away the music stands in some of our gigs, and we just try and do things in unexpected ways, and yeah, create experiences rather than a concert with a program and, you know, all those sort of formal aspects that you expect of a classical gig.
One of the things that I was really happy about the Stark Concerto was the fact that you did bring in some of these concepts that you fully explored with the Blackbird Ensemble, the different lightings through the three movements, and also the fact that as the piece went along, Amalia took off more and more clothes, sort of as an homage to the burlesque nature of what Frida Stark did as a profession. And there was this sort of visual engagement that I think made already very personal music that much more personal. I think we should get away from this sort of binary, one way, it's the work of art being bestowed on an audience for them to passively accept it. Rather, I see this idea of all three groups working together to create not a work of art so much as an event.
It's an experience, isn't it? And I often think that we should try and appeal to more senses than just sight and sound. When I recently did this ballet with the Royal New Zealand Ballet, we pumped the scent of gingerbread into the theatre because it's Hansel and Gretel, and so at interval everybody was like, what is that? And so I think, like, you know, and I love events where you have like food involved so that you can, I don't know, those Wellington on a plate events where they have food and wine and music. It's just like a sensory overload, and that creates more conversation, and it's, you know, it's so important to have the right mood so that people feel like they can open their senses to more than just if they're, you know, told what to do, and, you know, to respect the art that's been presented and all that sort of thing.
What's been interesting thus far, because I've spoken to about 4 other former composers in residence, composers that one might not associate with this idea, this concept, but I think there is a strong need for every composer that we've worked with in Orchestra Wellington to communicate somehow, to engage an audience, regardless of the style. I was talking to Chris Gendel earlier today about this, and this engagement, it doesn't necessarily have to be through a work that is instantly appealing. It could be through a work that maybe flummoxes people. I think a commonality between all of the composers that we've been privileged to work with is this idea that there is a communication that has to happen, a give and take between an audience. And for me, you are the ultimate example of that, in terms of your music, of course, but also your willingness to play with smell-o-vision, or yeah, which is fantastic, or costume changes, lighting, what have you. It's really inspirational to me. So, what's next for you?
Well, I really enjoyed writing a ballet last year, so more ballet scores, I think, I hope. And recording the one that I wrote and putting out my first CD would be amazing. So I'm working on that. And then who knows? I mean, this lockdown thing has really closed off so many of my projects, and they've sort of all got question marks hanging over them at this point. So I think it's good, because at the beginning of this year I was thinking I don't have any breaks at all. It's just back to back to back all of my projects, and that was a bit silly. I needed to have scheduled some sort of time to just step back and actually assess what's important and what I actually want to do, because you can't do everything. So I'm going to take this downtime to just put all these things out on the table and reassess what's important and what I want to do, and do it well, rather than trying to do everything. And I mean, while I'm doing projects for other people, I have a massive ideas that keep popping up that I have to keep squashing down and putting in the cupboard to go, all right, when I get a moment, I'll do that. And now I'm getting that moment, so I'm going through the cupboard.
So we've been like 5 weeks into it, and you're now to the point where you feel like you can look at, you've got that space to look at those things. Has it taken this time to sort of be able to step back a bit, or have you been busy until now?
Yeah, busy till now, really. Last Friday, I finished One Line Bridge on the TV show. So,
So great that
yeah.
you're involved with that, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's the same director and producer and production company as I've worked with lots of times before. They did like the Hillary series, and they did the Waitangi film, and they did the Women's Vote film and stuff. So it's really a familiar team, and they like to come to me with projects. So that's awesome for me.
Yeah, so you're only just starting to have that space now.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, just put in my final cue sheet, and now I can go through all my emails and reply to those ones that I've not had the time to do, and do household stuff that's been neglected and stuff like that. Try to do my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan.
Do you do 5-year and 10-year plans?
Not really. I haven't done that yet, but I mean, other people do that. I mean, I feel like I probably should. If you don't know what you want, then you just drift along and people keep asking you to do things. You keep saying yes, and then 5 years have gone by. You know, that's what's happened the last 5 years. So I feel like I need to.
Working for you, though.
For you.
Well, I've got work usually, which is awesome.